Hello everyone, my name is Brian DeWitt and I'm a science teacher here at Madison Consolidated High School. I'm also working on my degree in curriculum and instruction, specifically in learning design and technology at Purdue University. I'm in a course right now called Introduction to E-Learning, and our capstone project was to develop a fully functional online learning module. For this project, I've collaborated with Candy McKay, and we came up with the idea of having a professional development training on Hyperdocs. Hyperdocs are a really awesome e-learning tool that teachers can use any day. They're great for sub-plans, they're great for e-learning days, and they're great for every day in the classroom because they allow students to explore content on their own terms, and it promotes authentic student-centered instruction. So in this module, we're going to talk about how to create outstanding hyperdocs based on researched practices. We have several objectives for this challenge. The objectives are as follows. Given a resource about preparing instructional objectives, participants will create learning objectives for their hyperdoc that correctly identifies the performance condition and criteria. That's right, an objective about objectives. Objectives for days. Given a resource about the 5E model of writing hyperdocs, the 5E model includes engaging, explaining, exploring, elaborating, and evaluating. Participants will align the content of their hyperdoc with the 5E model. Given a resource about content packaging, so that will be either Google Sites, Slides, or Docs, participants will justify their delivery package for their hyperdoc with pieces of evidence. Given a resource about design workflow, participants will build the workflow of their hyperdoc by pushing out content in the form of websites, presentations, figures, and videos. Given a resource about design elements, participants will incorporate design elements into their hyperdoc by customizing links, incorporating relevant images, and choosing fonts or colors. And finally, using the Hack Your Hyperdoc rubric upon completion of the challenges, participants will evaluate the quality of their hyperdoc using a rubric. Hopefully you're not feeling overwhelmed about hyperdocs. Hyperdocs can come in a variety of flavors, shapes, and sizes. They can be from a simple bell ringer to an elaborate several-week lesson plan. What I've attached here are several hyperdocs that come from a variety of content areas that can be accessed on the Resources tab of the website. It's the Hyperdocs website. Here's a great hyperdoc about Earth Day. It's really cool looking, it's engaging. Given a couple of resources, students can then come in and type their answers and submit them. Here's a cool hyperdoc about fables, folktales, and myths. So there are some links here where students can explore and then apply their explorations to the questions. I thought this was a really neat one. The English teacher, or may have been a history teacher, but at either rate, they had their students watch film trailers and they asked them questions about the poster images and the trailers, and they're comparing different media. I thought this was a really neat math hyperdoc. This is in the form of a game where students are playing. You can see the instructions there. This is another math one where students have to use shapes and lines to figure out the rocket's launch, given that it's a parabola. Here's an interesting history one that includes maps. So based on what they were learning about Justinian I and the Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire back in the 500s, students are asked a couple of questions there. And here's another history one with the Roman Catholic Church. So there's a lot of different applications of hyperdocs. It can be used in any content area for any type of curriculum that you're pushing out to students. We're going to be doing our hyperdoc today in the form of a breakout. And hopefully you guys are familiar with breakouts. Basically, the idea of it is that you're locked in a room and you complete a series of challenges to break out of the room, hopefully before time expires. So you're going to collaborate today with a team of individuals to break out of the Hyperdoc using Google Forms. And we'll explain how this is going to work in just a second. So your task, should you choose to accept it, and hopefully you will, is to create an engaging content-specific Hyperdoc with your team. Hopefully you will be able to meet all of the requirements before time expires, and you will have 1 hour to make your Hyperdoc. There are 7 challenges, 6 of which must be completed before time expires. The first challenge, you're already doing it. It's to watch this inspired, engaging video about Hyperdocs. In challenge 2, you will work with a team of individuals to determine the topic and objectives for your Hyperdoc. You will then use the 5E model to engage, explain, explore, elaborate, and evaluate the Hyperdoc. You will determine your package, so sites, slides, or docs. You will build the workflow and design your Hyperdoc. And after you've completed your challenges, you will then evaluate your Hyperdoc. We will do that in the debriefing after the break. Your team will be composed of 4 individuals. Each of them have important responsibilities. First up is the captain. The captain should be someone who has advanced experience using Google Apps for Education. This person is going to be a bit of a technology guru, and their responsibility is to lead the team, provide technology tips, and to facilitate discussion. The captain's responsibility, however, is not to do all of the work, but to lead the team to the successful completion of the challenges before time is called. The note taker has an important role, and the note taker is going to record the team notes and is responsible for filling out the forms. This is especially important, especially when you get to the breakout form. Upon successfully completing the challenges, you will be provided with a code, and that code is case sensitive, and that code will be entered into the breakout form. It's really important that the note taker does not close out of the breakout form once it's been opened, because if you do, you'll have to go back and find all of your codes again and re-enter them. So the note taker is going to ensure that everything gets submitted and documented on time. The timekeeper also has an important role, and that's to help keep the team on task. With a 1-hour time limit, it'll be very important that we have someone on your team that's keeping track of the time and is going to motivate the team to be completing the challenges. And other teammates are going to contribute to team discussions by sharing ideas. We would like to have 4 individuals on a team, each with a specific role. We would also like the teams to cross over between the junior high and the high school, meaning your teams should be composed of team members from both the junior high and the high school who work within your department. So for example, a science team could consist of Mrs. Shaw, myself, Kenton Mahoney, and Carrie Bettingham is just one example. You are now ready to begin. I will tell you that because I'm working in a Purdue program right now, that most of the challenges are Purdue themed. That is meant no offense to my IU colleagues. I'm also working in a program at Indiana University, but the challenges today are centered around Purdue University for the most part, except for the last one. The first breakout code for challenge 1 is Purdue Pete. It is case sensitive. You can enter this into the breakout form for challenge 1. At this time, you may begin. Best of luck as you continue your adventures and learn about Hyperdocs and how you can implement them into your classrooms. I hope you have a great time, and I would love to hear your feedback.